Hey guys, welcome to my end of the year book review where I review all of the books that I read in 2022. These are all going to be YA books. I read 6 YA books this year, so let's get started. Let's start with The Project by Courtney Summers. It's about a girl named Lo who has spent the last 6 years trying to find and reconnect with her older sister B. After their parents died in a car accident, B left to join something called the Unity Project. Lo is an aspiring journalist and she wants to investigate the project not only for a piece but also to find her older sister. She dives deep into the world of this community, the project, and gets to know various members as well as their charismatic leader, Lev Warren. This book isn't fast-paced in the way that some thrillers are. It's more of a slow burn as Lo investigates further into these people and their lives. But I never really lost interest. I think this is due to Courtney Summers' writing style. The way she writes, she doesn't lay every fact out for you plain and simple. It always leaves pieces for you to put together, and that always leaves my brain very awake and stimulated. I could make a whole video on why I love Courtney Summers' writing style so much. So I don't know if it matters, but I personally am not religious, and certain things that Lev Warren said in this book I would kind of auto skim over and categorize as nonsense, and because of that it was kind of difficult for me to understand how certain people fell for him. It was hard for me to get into some of these characters' heads and understand why they did what they did. I found this out from a book review on Goodreads, but apparently Courtney Summers tweeted, "This is a book that will make you question everything you think you know about yourself." And if I had read that tweet before reading this book, I think I would have been a little bit disappointed in this book, because are we supposed to be falling for what these characters are falling for? Because I definitely wasn't. That being said, I was still hooked on this book. If you like cults and you don't mind a slower paced thriller, I think that this would be the perfect book for you. Personally, I would rate it a 4 out of 5 stars. Next we have Killing Time by Brenna Ehrlich. I think I'm saying that right. So Natalie is a true crime obsessed teen, and when her favorite teacher is murdered, she's determined to get to the bottom of it. Even though her very strict mother doesn't like true crime or Natalie engaging in this investigation at all. I think the setting is a highlight of this book. It takes place in Ferry, Connecticut, which I've never been to Ferry, Connecticut, but based on reading this book, I feel like I got a really good picture of what it looks like there and the vibe of the town. The plot was well done. It switches from Natalie's point of view to her mom Helen's point of view from when her mom was in college, I think. I like that switch every so often. We kind of get some insight into Helen's character and why she is the way that she is today. I was into the mystery. I would have liked to maybe know more about the teacher who died. I feel like sometimes books do this. Books that start off with a dead body being found sometimes don't go enough into the person, the victim who was killed, and like what their life was like and all that, and I would have liked to know a little bit more. As for the writing style, I think this book falls victim to the fact that I read it right after a Courtney Summers book, and Courtney Summers has the best writing style ever, and nothing can really compare to that. Personally, for me, this book kind of fell flat writing wise. There was a lot of info dumping. And I mean, you know what? It wasn't bad or anything. It was definitely very straightforward and a very easy read. And I think that can be a good thing depending on what you're looking for. I would give this 3 out of 5 stars. 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. So this was the first fantasy book that I ever read, and I actually picked it up because I liked the cover. The art was so beautiful, I just had to have it. And this book is about a princess named Shiori. She's set up for an arranged marriage that she doesn't want. She also has a secret, which is that she can do magic, which she is hiding from her family. I believe magic is banned in the kingdom. Her stepmother, Raikama, finds out about her magic and banishes her and turns her 6 brothers into cranes. And this book is about kind of Shiori's journey getting back home and trying to break her stepmother's curse. It took me a few chapters to get into this book because it's really not something I'm used to. I've never really read anything like this before, but once I was into it, I was really into it. very fairy tale vibes. Reading this was a lot like watching a Studio Ghibli movie. There were dragons, magic, kingdoms, that whole vibe. This was very fun and innocent, and I almost feel like the main character, I think, is 16. She could have been anywhere from like 13 to 18, and this book would have still read the same. That's not a bad thing or anything. I just am pointing that out. It's just very innocent. Anyone of any age could read this book. I think the sequel to this book, The Dragon's Promise, is out. I think it's been out for a little bit. I was kind of debating if I want to read it or not. Going back and reviewing this book and thinking back to what it was like reading it, I just decided that I'm definitely going to get the second one. I'm going to order it right now. It's just such a nice escape from real life to read something like this. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, sorry for the sudden change in location, but I did forget one book, and that is the finale to the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson. The final is called As Good as Dead, and I read this really early in the year, but I actually remember it pretty well because it's so insane. The first 2 books of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series star our main character Pip, who is very funny and fun and likes to investigate murder, but the books in general have a very fun Nancy Drew-esque feel to them, and Holly Jackson really took a new direction with the 3rd book. This one turns very dark. I remember reading some of the reviews saying that this one feels darker than the other ones, and they were not kidding. This book is insane. It starts with Pip, who is no longer our fun, happy Pip. She unfortunately is experiencing some PTSD from a murder that she witnessed in the previous book, and she's dealing with drug addiction. Pip starts getting anonymous messages that she thinks are coming from an actual serial killer, and she thinks basically a serial killer is stalking her. As I said, it's been a long time since I read this book, so I don't exactly remember at what point in the book it changes tones, but it starts out kind of slow, and then I want to say halfway through, something so intense happens. For the rest of the book, my heart was beating so fast. I have never in my life been so stressed when reading a book. Here's the thing, we know Pip. We know and love Pip. There have already been 2 books setting up this whole character. She feels like a friend, we know her well. And then in the 3rd book, horrible things happen to Pip. If you love the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series and you really like that lighthearted, fun feel, even though it's about murder investigations, don't read the last one because it's very, very intense. I thought it was good. I mean, any writing that can make you feel such strong emotions, I think is very powerful writing. There is a decision that Pip makes sort of towards the end of this book that feels very not out of character for me. It's just oh my god, how did we get here? How did Pip get to this point? This is not the Pip that we know from the first book, but I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a fantastic read. I probably read it in a couple sittings because I was so glued to it. I feel like I have to give it a 5 out of 5 just because all of these books are so good. Next we have The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharpe. So this book has a really interesting format. It's told in real time of a bank robbery happening, as well as in flashbacks to our main character Nora's life. So Nora's mom was a con artist, and Nora has a set of special skills because of her past that help her when she's stuck in a bank during a robbery. The 2 people she's with in the bank are her current girlfriend and her ex-boyfriend, who is now good friends with both of them. We get a little bit of insight into that relationship through the flashbacks. This was a quick read. I found it really engaging. I liked the complicated relationship between Nora and her mother and all the insane things that Nora did back in the con days and the things that she was put through, and why she ultimately ran away from that situation. For whatever reason, this wasn't a 5 out of 5 stars book for me. I've been trying to figure out why. I think maybe it's because I cared a little bit more about Nora's past than I did about the current situation and if they were going to get away in the bank robbery. Maybe it's because I've just seen a lot of bank robbery movies and shows and stuff, and I kind of know how that situation with hostages often plays out in fiction, at least. But speaking of, they actually are making this book into a movie starring Millie Bobby Brown, and honestly, I'll probably watch it. 4 out of 5 stars. Next, we have Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. So I just made a video about this book, so I'm not going to go too into depth here, but this is the prequel to We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, where we go back to their parents' generation when they were teens and their own drama and lies that take place on the private island their family owns. This was by far the best book that I read all year. I absolutely loved it. If you want to know more, go watch the previous video. 5 out of 5 stars. I'm the Girl by Courtney Summers. So I just finished reading this yesterday, and this is probably the heaviest young adult book I have ever read. If you're a younger teenager, this could be potentially traumatizing, and I would almost recommend waiting till you're a little older to read it. And I never say that about any young adult books, but this one is pretty intense. Trigger warnings for sexual assault, grooming, sexual coercion, sexual manipulation, I guess. So 16-year-old Georgia wants to be an Aspera girl. Aspera is a luxury resort in the mountains where the rich go to relax, and they hire only the most beautiful girls to work there, known as Aspera girls. So in the beginning of this book, Georgia finds the body of a 13-year-old girl who was killed on the side of the road. Her name was Ashley, and Georgia teams up with Ashley's older sister to try and solve this crime. But I wouldn't say that that's Georgia's main motivation throughout this book. It's kind of more about her wanting to be an Aspera girl and her moving up in the ranks over at the resort. It feels like she's mostly helping with the investigation because she has feelings for Ashley's older sister, which I'll admit the queer romance in this book is a nice touch. And basically the only thing about this book that's not completely devastating. I finished this book feeling horrible. This is the complete opposite of a feel-good book. This is a feel-bad book. I think what's so devastating, potential spoilers by the way, I'm not gonna go like super into depth, but if you like being completely surprised by books, I'll put a timestamp so you can skip this part. So what's so devastating is that there are no consequences for the bad guys in the end. It's like this book is about only Georgia uncovering the truth, but no one else really, and no change really occurring. I get that that's accurate to the real world and that abusers often get off scot-free, but this is fiction, and personally, I would have enjoyed this book a lot more if we had a satisfying ending where the bad guys get taken down. Courtney Summers' writing style really shines through again in this novel. However, some scenes are very graphic and detailed. There was a particular scene that I thought was so genius. She used like a storm and lightning as a background to a really bad thing that was happening, and the descriptions of the lightning really put me in the moment and like made the scene so much more scary and like horrific. It was a small detail, but I thought it was such a great choice and added so much to the scene. This book ended very abruptly, and there were a few things that didn't completely add up for me and I felt could have been clarified. All in all, I would give this 4 out of 5 stars because it was so well done and the writing was so good. But I wouldn't exactly recommend this book to anyone. It definitely left me feeling gross and I wouldn't read it again. So that is it. Oh, honorable mention, I did read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy this year. That's not a YA, that's a memoir, but if you want to know more about that, I also have a video on this channel about that book. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my book review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.